Hello, and welcome to day number 13 of our 30-day progressive meditation series. Yesterday I discussed nutrition and its effects on our state of being, and how that eventually impacts our meditation practice. Previous to that, I talked about judgment, and how suspension of our judgment promotes greater clarity in our lives. So continuing this same theme, in the discussion of judgment and weaving in other aspects, today I wanted to discuss listening. Now there are several facets to listening, and some of these we'll discuss after our meditation. But to start, the one I really want to talk about is listening to our own thoughts. Now it's important that we recognize right off the bat two things. The first is that we are not our thoughts, and the second is that we don't have to believe every thought that comes to mind. So the focus of today's meditation practice is that we'll be listening to the thoughts that come up in our mind's ear. Now thoughts happen on their own. They bubble up at a certain frequency with a certain loudness depending upon what's gone on in your day so far, what your overall state of being is. But today, our goal is just to listen to each thought as it comes up, to listen clearly, and then let it go. So for example, I just sat down from my meditation practice, and within the first minute, I thought to myself, I wonder if I locked the back door. Now, from really listening to myself, what I hear is that I'm not sure if the back door is locked. But if I let myself get carried away by that one thought and let it chain to other ones, then I start to play out scenarios of what happens if somebody comes in the back door? What happens if the wind blows it open and the dog gets out? So we're looking to avoid letting the mind continue to chain one thought after the other. Instead, we're just going to listen and let go. So I acknowledge the thought, I'm not sure if the back door is locked. And to the best of my ability, I leave it at that. So we're about to put this exercise to practice, but I want to note something very obvious first, which is this is a practice. This is not a perfect. So it's okay, and rather is really expected, that you will have to come back to this practice of listening over and over again. More than likely, you'll be distracted time and time again as you sit there and try to really listen to your thoughts. But, like I said, it's a practice. So set yourself up. Get some movement in now. Do whatever you need to feel a little bit more relaxed, a little more grounded in your body. And now, make sure that you're sitting up nice and tall, shoulders over hips and ears over shoulders. Settle in for a nice 13-minute meditation. Make your way back to your room, coming back to all of your senses, listening to the external world now. So there's a couple more points around listening that I want to make. And a lot of this stuff, it plays in at a larger scale than just our meditation practice, but then has this tremendous feedback into the time that we actually sit down for meditation. Because if we can cultivate a meditative state, a more meditative state anyway, throughout the rest of our lives, our meditation practices are going to be totally improved. So when it comes to listening to ourselves, that's one thing, and it's a great practice. But the harder thing usually is to really listen to other people. And I mean this in two senses. The first is the listening to other people and not internalizing something they say to the point that you allow it to change your internal state of peace. You know the old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Now, can you completely prevent somebody else's words from affecting you? No. There's obviously an effect happening simply because your ears receive the noise that the other person's mouth makes. There's no way around that unless you put earplugs in. But what you can prevent is your mind from getting carried away by thoughts generated by somebody else's words. So this is the first sense. The second sense is when you're listening to somebody else, we tend to put our own stories over top of what somebody else is saying, and so we're not listening to the real truth of their words. Now, what is that truth? It's hard to say. Most likely, the person speaking isn't really even sure of the words that they themselves are saying. After all, the words we say are mostly ad-libbed. They're improvised. But the point is to take only at face value the words that this person says, and not to add any more or take away any of what they say, putting it out of context, layering on your own stuff. It helps us maintain our internal equilibrium, and we can simply plainly listen to somebody else. So how do we do that? Well, it comes back to the judgment and the suspension of judgment. Again, this is something that takes practice. But the better able we are to do this, the greater returns we'll see everywhere else in our lives. And the one place we'll easily be able to measure that is our meditation practice. So I hope you've enjoyed day number 13. Stay tuned for tomorrow when we'll be talking about judgment and work. I'll see you then.